Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. We finally made it. At least you did. I still have another day, but unbelievable. It's here. Get fired up. I know it sucks a little bit that it's the 3 o'clock slot. My son gets mad at me. It's not 3 o'clock, it's 3 whatever. I don't know, dude. You got the 12 o'clock, the 3 o'clock, the 7 o'clock. I don't know if it's 3:05, 3:15, 3:20, 3:30. I can't remember. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Talking about the 3 o'clock games, all right? So for any of you psychos out there that are... He keeps saying, why does he keep saying 3 o'clock? It's not at 3 o'clock. There are a set of games in the 3 o'clock window. The Packers are one of them. It's always tough waiting, but we got football, especially week 1. You should be excited about other football, especially that Bears-Vikings game, because if this Tyler Dunn article is correct, first of all, I was right about freaking everything, as usual. But also, Caleb's going to look like dog crap again, so that'll be funny. I'm rooting for the Bears, unfortunately, but no, I'm not. I'm rooting against the Vikings, but it's going to be fun either way. That game's on Monday. I'm just saying we got other games to be excited about. Find something to do early, hopefully sleep in, go to church, watch other football games, whittle wood, clean your gutters, and then boom, football. Simple as that. But the goal for today is simple. We're going to go over Lions, Packers. We went over Lions yesterday primarily. I want to focus a little bit more on the matchup, as well as a couple little hype things. There's some videos I never got to that are in the hype category that I think are appropriate for today. First of all, though, Matt Schneidman, Packers alumni, who will be introduced at halftime on Sunday for Alumni Weekend. Jerry Kramer, Dave Robinson, Marv Fleming, Chuck Mersine. How do I know him? Do we give away a jersey of his or something? Donnie Anderson, Don Horn, John Michaels, Mike McCoy, Lynn Dickey, James Lofton, Johnny Gray, Jerry Ellis, John Anderson, Paul Kaufman, Willie B. It's the whole crew, man. This list goes on forever. It's not like there's 5. There's, I don't know, a billion. But a couple other quick hitters, Leroy Butler, Antonio Freeman, Frank Winters, Bill Schroeder, Mike Wall, Ryan Longwell, I'm on green. I don't know. Is this just the crew that kind of like hangs in the area that are around for everything? Cullen Jenkins, I don't know. Is he a local guy? It's always the same names that you hear a lot. I mean, Kramer and Dave Robinson, too. They're everywhere. They must be living in the area. Johnny Jolly, let's go. Jarrett Bush, Jason Spitz, haven't heard that name in a while. Charlie Pepper, John Kuhn, Ryan Grant. Apologize to the people I'm skipping. It's probably more of a generational thing than anything. I'm getting the 90s and 2000s guys. Josh Sitton, there we go. Desmond Bishop, Brett Swain, TJ Lang, Scott Wells, Tom Crabtree, Jermichael Finley, Brad Jones, Marshall Newhouse, Andrew Corliss, CJ Wilson, Frank Zombo, Ryan Taylor, Alex Green, Josh Hawkins, and a pile of guys that I skipped in the middle there. Oh, Larry McCarron I skipped. Sorry about that. Willie Buchanan. I skipped like 3 people. But they're going to be introduced at halftime, so that'll be fun. There's also this fun little tidbit. Nope, hold on. Just give me a minute here, Kay. That she over what is she with? ESPN, FanDuel TV, MSG Networks, whatever she's got going on wherever she works, they were able to pull this stat for her. Here we go.
Do you know that if you have 126 yards against the Lions week 1?
Do you see what I mean though about Kay Adams being the flirty girl from The Office? Who asks a question this way?
Do you know that if you have 126 yards against the Lions week 1, you're the 3rd fastest to reach 7,000 yards in all of NFL history?
Nah, I didn't know that. I'm glad you told me that, though.
126, yeah. Okay?
Okay.
So I feel like LaFleur, let's get in his ear, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. That's good to know.
You're ahead of Emmett's pace, I think.
I ain't trying to play that long, though.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're not trying to play that long?
Nah, no shot.
I mean, is there anybody else that's going to take the workload off of you? Is that the plan? Are you wanting the ball more at this point in your career?
I think we got a lot of guys that can spin, honestly. Our running back room is pretty deep this year.
Who do you like?
At the end of the day, like if the game is on the line or whatever we really need to win, I mean, I like me. I say it every day. I like me in any situation. So however it play out, I'm cool with. But obviously, I'm gonna want to touch it for sure.
Are you going to be in LaFleur's ear this year for that 126 week one? Come on.
I mean, I think it's understood.
It's understood.
I think that's pretty interesting. Now, that's a tall order, 126. He cracked that twice last year. One was 127, so it was by a yard. The other time, so that was Jacksonville. The other was week 2 against Indy, 151. His fourth highest was against Detroit. It was 95 yards, though. And he's going to need a minimum of 25 carries. It looks like 4 games he had 25 or more carries. 3 of those 4, he cracked 100 yards. 127, 106. Against Seattle, it was 94, and then Indy was 151. So we'll see. And, again, how do you mitigate the damage of a guy like Aiden Hutchinson? You run the ball, and both teams are going to try to run the ball effectively, the Packers and the Lions. You establish the run, you take away the pass rush threat, and then you can kind of just do whatever you want. And if they're able to establish the run, yeah, maybe Josh Jacobs does get that many yards, or that many carries, I should say. It seems unlikely that they would do that early in a game, in a season. Usually you want to keep guys a little bit fresh, but they did do it week 2, although that was a good chance that was we had the lead and we were just letting them run out the clock kind of a situation. So I don't know. Let's just leave it at it's a tall order. All right, a couple fun little videos here. Detroit Lions did a video with their head coach kind of talking strategy or whatever. Here is what he had to say in part.
In steps, the rookie first-rounder, Matthew Golden. How would you introduce us to that rookie?
Well, he's explosive. We did a lot of work on him in the draft. We liked him, but he is explosive. He's got elite speed, and he's got playmaking ability down the field. I mean, you see him here all the way up at the top of your screen. Nice job finding the ball. We call this radar, man. He's able to radar lock on these balls and find it, track them down, but he's got speed. So, look, they're going to try to get him involved. He's a guy that they like a lot. I know why. But they got a couple of tight ends that are pretty good, too, that I think they're going to play a lot with.
Mm-hmm.
I love the term radar lock, by the way. I always have a hard time trying to come up with my own stupid terms. And I don't think I have one for that particular skill set, so I might steal radar. Cricket is fired up today for the Packer game. Right? Right, Cricket? You only talk when I talk. I'm trying to let you have the mic by yourself. Fine, screw you. Also find it interesting that remember, it was the reporter that brought up Matthew Golden. He talked about Golden, but then unprompted was like, yeah, but watch out for those tight ends. I find that to be a little bit interesting. That seems to be front of his mind of what he's a little concerned about. Here is, I think I played a different Pardon My Take thing before from the resident Bears fan over there. But this is a different one. And again, it's Micah Parsons based, but it just goes with the hype train, man. It's all good stuff.
How worried should I be about the Packers adding Micah Parsons? It's bad. That felt like the Packers were already a really good team, and they just were missing like one of those game-changing guys on defense. And Micah Parsons is probably the number one game-changing guy on defense. So talk me off the ledge. Is this good? They're all in. That's the one thing I keep telling myself. They better win now.
Again, that whole thing is stupid. There's no reason why they have to win now. Why do they have to win now? Can they win next year? Can they win in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years? Can they win in 5 years after they give them another extension, or 6 years or 7 years? Is that allowed? What happens then? If they win in 3 years, are you going to come back and say, ha, 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 you won a Super Bowl, but it's a year later than I said you have to, ha, 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 ha. What are you talking about?
I think there's only one team that I would take over Green Bay right now on a neutral field, and that's Philadelphia.
Shit.
Because I think Philadelphia still has the ability to line up and hit you in the mouth with Saquon Barkley. But if the Packers get home field advantage and you got to go to Green Bay and you got to play up there, they're going to be tough to beat, because here's the X factor. Matt LaFleur is calling the plays. If the quarterback is healthy, they got a runner, they got a bunch of young wide receivers, and if that defense, led by Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, the kid Edric Cooper from A&M, Quay Walker, they got a bunch of young dudes, man, that they don't know what they don't know, and they are just young and kind of crazy enough that they can go win it all this year.
We've got some more stats about Micah that are just seemingly impossible. Mina Kimes, actually, let's do this from the start, because I don't think I played this. In fact, I don't even think I've listened to this. Let's go to the original source. Here's a video Mina Kimes did on Micah Parsons.
I'm excited for the trickle-down effect on the rest of the defense. Micah Parsons was very slightly behind Myles Garrett, the most double-teamed player in football the last few years, most double-teamed edge. Rashawn Gary is going to get the tastiest matchups. They can push Van Ness inside on pass rush downs. That's going to be interesting too. Like Edgerrin Cooper flying around, like everybody else, just their lives all got easier in this front seven because of the presence of Micah Parsons.
And also just what we're going to see from Xavier McKinney. I mentioned him earlier, but the fact that he was able to do what he did with a less effective pass rush, it wasn't bad. Like you said, there was issues getting there quickly. Think of a similar thing with like the Patriots loading up on the defensive line and what that could do for a guy like Christian Gonzalez, just obviously helping out the front part of your defense. But that turnover number is very shaky year to year. It's not a way you necessarily want to live. On paper you do, but it's a hard thing to do year in and year out. But when you have a presence like Parsons, who also can force fumbles himself, this isn't just a guy who's making tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He's also somebody who can steal possessions for you. I think that's a pretty significant part of it as well.
Okay, so that's how that started. Then there was a comment, is there any evidence he makes other players better? It's an interesting and fair question. I think we need to spend more time challenging assumptions. Everybody gets upset about it. Like, oh, duh. It's a fair question. Mina Kimes quote tweeted that and said he was the second most double-teamed edge in football, a hair behind Garrett. Now, it doesn't directly answer the question. It still sticks with the assumption that everyone else is going to benefit from that and be better. It seems, again, somewhat obvious, but it's additional insights from Mina Kimes that being the second most double-teamed edge in football, you can't double-team everybody. So if you double-team somebody all the time, that means you double-team the rest of the team mostly none of the time. And then Robert comments and says, yes, but did he defeat those double teams? Number one, that's not the point of what we're talking about here. I mean, it's an interesting point, but it's beside the point. Did his teammates get pressure wins because of it? That kind of is the point, irrespective of the first answer to the first point. He's a good stats against bad teams guy. I could look it up, but I can already tell you that's not true because he doesn't have bad stats. So unless he's only played bad teams, I don't know what to tell you. Gets blocked up when rushing inside and can be run at outside because he's light, very good player, but not complete and not a top 5 edge guy. Mina Kimes quote tweeted that and said, over the last 3 years, Parsons ranks first league-wide in pressure rate versus double teams. This is why I don't like people just saying stuff. You know, Robert Smith here, who said all that, first of all, he's not thinking hard enough to recognize that the first question is irrelevant, but it doesn't matter to him because people just like to vomit out words. But it seems to me what a lot of people do is they take little bits of information and then they just feel free to elaborate however they feel that they can. For example, he probably heard that Micah Parsons doesn't do as well in the postseason. Again, I have a lot of problems with that stat. Primarily is that it's a small sample size. Again, look at TJ Watt. Elite pass rusher, not the best postseason stats. It doesn't make them a bad football player. If I grab any 3 games and say these 3 games are bad, therefore draw some kind of conclusion, my answer is going to be no. I'm not going to draw a conclusion about that. We're out here talking about you can't determine how good a player is in 3 years or until 3 years, but I'm going to pick out 3 games and that's going to tell me something. But he probably heard that or something like that and expanded that out. He's a Niners fan, by the way, so he's not some Cowboys fan that has some kind of insight. He has some casual knowledge about Micah Parsons and says he's a good stats against bad teams guy. He has nothing to back that up whatsoever. He just has some passing knowledge, and he just expanded on it. Gets blocked up when rushing inside. Again, he is the absolute best interior pass rusher in like PFF history. There's never been a guy to rush from the interior as good as him. So that's just made up. But why did he say it? Well, he's a smaller guy. So he assumes he can't live on the inside. That's where all the big boys play. He can't play in there. He's just making that up based off of little footnotes he has and little stereotypes that are partially things that he's picked up and heard along the way and partially stuff he's just made up in his head. He can be run at outside because he's light. Again, this is kind of a made-up thing. I know he's light, therefore I know that he can be run at. He's not looking at stats. He's just saying it. Mina Kimes also posted this. I think it was in a comment to this thing here. I never know, because sometimes they just start putting random crap on here. But she commented to this quote tweet of league-wide, he's number 1 in pressure rate versus double teams. She said, listen to the players. Here's a quote from Philadelphia Eagles locker room thing. Sigh of relief, Mailata said. I say that as a joke, but at the same time, it's just kind of crazy. The last 4 or 5 years that we've played the Dallas Cowboys, we've come up with a game plan because Micah's a game wrecker. It's a sigh of relief because you don't have to plan like that anymore. But, however, that is a talented D-line room and a talented defense. So, I mean, he's talking about, like, it was so much work having to plan just for that one frickin' guy. And, of course, there's a comment, who cares? The Cowboys' defense has been terrible. Okay, kind of not the point, is it? Kind of not the point, is it? If you can't see how that's not the point, stick to finger painting, bro. I don't know what to tell you. You're not a thinking man. The only point you could possibly be making is that Micah, everybody believes, will suddenly make a bad team a great defense, or a bad defense a great defense. Nobody's making that point. And so when you obliterate a point that nobody else is actually making, that's what they call a straw man. The question is Micah very, very good? The answer, definitively, is yes. What do very, very good players do when they're brought to a team? They help make that team better. And so you look at the Packers. The Packers had a top 10 defense last year. Where on that top 10, I don't really know. I don't remember, doesn't super matter. Let's say in and around 5-ish. You add Micah Parsons. Does that make them number 1? Not necessarily. That the defense might naturally regress. It might have been number 1 without Micah Parsons. You don't really know. All I know is that 2 weeks ago, this defense was worse than it is today. And that's not really debatable. And saying who cares, the Cowboys' defense has been terrible provides nothing to this conversation. Nothing. You stupid person. Moving on. I got this one for you. It's not a hype thing, but it needs to be announced. Just another reminder that Kurt Benkert is a Packers hater that pretends to be a Packers fan. His comment after the trade for Micah Parsons, after we found out that he had some back tightness, was, did Jerry Jones finesse? Packers fans, remember Zadarius Smith back issue? I sure hope not. Bro, somebody get this guy out of here. Can we get him out of here? How do we make him be somewhere else? Why couldn't he have taken a knee for a different team? All right, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. I'm going to do the best I can to get through as much as we can for Packers-Lions before we get to our third segment, which is going through the rest of the game's speed round. But we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so let's go through sort of the general, call it the dope sheet for the game. A couple little interesting tidbits here. All-time regular season, Packers are 104, 78, and 7 against the Lions. They're 2-0 in the postseason, 1-0 at Lambeau. All-time regular season while at home, 61, 30, and 4. Packers won 24 of their last 30 regular season meetings at Lambeau. Lions fans would love for you to zoom in close enough to where you can't see any of those Packers wins, but if you zoom in any closer, you'll be able to count your frickin' nose hairs. Last meeting was December 5th, 2024 at Ford Field. The Lions won 34-31. Coaches are Matt LaFleur and Dan Campbell. Matt LaFleur with a 670 win rate. Dan Campbell 556. Matt LaFleur is 3-5 in the postseason. Dan Campbell is 2-2. LaFleur's 7th season, Campbell's 6th. Matt LaFleur is 2-6 against Campbell right now. There's a lot of Michigan connections. Obviously, you got Detroit, but Matt LaFleur is a Michigan guy. Carl Brooks is a Michigan guy. Kamal Haddon is a Michigan guy. Rashawn Gary went to Michigan. Jaden Reed not only went to Michigan State, but went to Western Michigan, which is where LaFleur originally coached at. You also have the Lions quarterback coach, Mark Brunell, who played for the Packers in 93 and 94. As well as Lions senior personnel executive John Dorsey, who was a Packers executive 91 through 98, and then 2000 through 2012. Also a player from 84 to 88. You've heard me talk a lot about Dorsey. I'm a big fan of Dorsey. He's never been anywhere where the team wasn't great. When he was with Green Bay, they were great. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs. They got Mahomes and became great. He went to Cleveland, a team that has only been great for about 5 seconds, and those 5 seconds are when Dorsey was there. And they drafted Baker Mayfield and retooled a bunch of stuff and actually became a playoff caliber team. And then they got rid of him. Everything went to hell, and here we are. Then he goes to Detroit, of course, and Detroit becomes a powerhouse. So yeah, if we end up getting rid of Brian Gutekunst for whatever reason, you can put me down as a please, please, please go get Dorsey. I don't know what it is that people don't like about him or what's bad about him, but suck it up. Packers are opening the season for the first time since 2018, third time in the last 13 seasons. Packers have won their home opener the last 12 seasons, 2013 to 2024. Bear in mind that says home opener, not week 1. I misconstrued that for a second. I was like, that is 1,000% not true. It is the longest franchise streak and the longest NFL streak since Seattle's 12 straight, 2009 to 2020. It's the third time in the last 4 years opening against a division foe. It is their earliest regular season game by date at Lambeau since 2003. First season opener versus the Lions since 2005. First week 1 home game versus Detroit since 2001. 13th week 1 meeting, Packers won 3 of the last 4. Including the 1994 playoff, Packers are 28-6 versus the Lions in Wisconsin since 1992. The series is currently even at 6-6 since 2019. 8 of the last 12 meetings were decided by 7 points or less, including 2 of the last 3. Last season at Lambeau, Packers held Lions to 261 yards, 137 passing yards, second fewest for Detroit in 2024. As for the analysis, I mean, it's kind of all over the place between who picks the Lions and who picks the Packers, and I don't have a problem with either. Like I've said before, I don't mind really anything, just be able to argue for it. The one thing I don't like, and this is in favor of the Packers, and again, I could be wrong about this. I don't know. I don't think I am. But this obsession with the coordinators, I'll be honest, I really just don't buy it. I really, really don't. Not at the scale that a lot of people are bringing this. Peter Schrager, who in the news a lot because of a Ryan Clark controversy or whatever, but he went on Pat McAfee and went so far as to say, and he's not alone in this, the Lions are not going to make the playoffs. Now, of course, that's possible. But to take a team as dominant as they were, with all of the injuries that they had, remember, if it wasn't for the injuries, I don't know what could have possibly stopped them. Looking at things like DVOA and whatnot, this wasn't just a good team, it was a historically good team. To act like we can disregard everything because Ben Johnson is just this freak show, which I don't know that anyone's really been able to demonstrate. Somebody probably has somewhere, but can you answer that? For those of you that are like, oh no, it's real, can you tell me how you know Ben Johnson is an elite offensive play caller? How do you know? How do you know he wasn't just calling nonsense and it was working? I mean, if you call normal plays that a lot of other people call, and I understand other coaches are going to say it. Other coaches say that stuff all the time. Coaches lie all the time, too. You ask Matt LaFleur about their middling or terrible receiver or something, and Matt LaFleur's going to be like, oh, yeah, he's got great speed and great hands. Blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that. And the media is going to just gush over people all the time anyways, because there's two things here. There's people that see things very shallowly and want to sound smart. In other words, the Lions offense is incredible. And so I'm going to say that Ben Johnson is a great play caller, and I'm watching the film and I'm watching the tape. No, you're not. You're just watching a team succeed, and you're giving credit to the... And by the way, we know that they don't know how to do this by looking at the Bears. Oh, look at this terrible play call. They're not terrible play callers. They're terrible players. When you call plays, they can't execute them. Oh, terrible play caller. Oh, look at they're calling all these checkdowns. They're not calling checkdowns. There is no checkdown play. Unless you're talking about like a screen. There's no such thing as a checkdown play. There are plays that offer checkdowns as options, and quarterbacks can choose to take that or not. And a quarterback that continually chooses to take that because they don't know what the heck they're doing is not the fault of an offensive coordinator. It's also not their fault if you have to dumb down your offense because your team is too stupid. But these very basic concepts are completely unknown to these media geniuses who tell us that Ben Johnson is a genius. Again, maybe he is, I don't know. But as far as I can tell, all we know about the Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson, number one, they were very successful. Doesn't tell me a bunch. Number two, they ran a lot of trick plays. Okay, doesn't take a genius to come up with trick plays. Any one of these offensive coordinators can come up with trick plays. You just don't use them so often. And they use them so often probably for two reasons. Number one, they're known as a very aggressive football team. They ran a lot of fourth down plays and whatnot, which are higher trick play type of situations. Also, trick plays tend to be more aggressive anyways. It's more of a high-risk, high-reward kind of a thing, and they were a high-risk team largely because of their head coach. But also they did it because it worked. Because of the players. If it didn't work, they wouldn't run it. And then would Ben Johnson no longer be a genius? If they just didn't have the players to execute the concepts, would that make him less of a genius? In which case, how many geniuses are out there just with bad teams that you can't see their genius? Probably a lot of them. Probably most of them, if not all of them. So I just don't know if I'm buying the whole brain drain thing because the players are still there. The overall concepts are still there. There's a concern more so about are the guys replacing them going to be bad than I am about the guy that was there was so good that he made them good when they really weren't. I just don't think that that's the situation. Could be wrong. I don't know. But again, if the guys coming in cannot handle the situational aspect of things, they're, just not calling the right plays at the right time and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, it's going to be a problem. But I don't think it's just automatic that unless Ben Johnson is there, they're just going to be bad. I think that is honestly kind of silly. I did do a little bit of a research thing here, looking back over the history of departures. There's not a ton of data, especially if you're talking about similar situations, especially if we're talking about two coordinators or whatever. But here is kind of what we have here. And the third part of this was supposed to be this compared to just normal regression, but I didn't get that far. So let me just read through a little bit of this. The Lions face a historical challenge entering the 2025 season, losing both coordinators after a franchise record 15-2 season. Based on comprehensive historical analysis, Detroit should expect an 11-6 to 12-6 record in 2025, which represents a 3 to 4 win regression from their peak performance. Now, we can get into the details here, but that's kind of the point. There is statistical regression after coordinators get hired away. Here's the problem. Coordinators that get hired away typically get hired away from teams that have good records. Teams that have good records typically regress anyways. So what's the difference between a 15-win team that drops to a 12 or 11-win team, just normally because that's just natural regression, and a team that loses their coordinators? I don't know. Historical data reveals that 100% of teams losing both coordinators after successful seasons had worse records the following year. And again, that leans heavier into my question. If your offensive and defensive coordinators get taken away, you probably had a super mega elite team. And the odds of getting an improved record are probably exceedingly low. The average decline of 3.2 wins. Detroit's situation is unprecedented. No team has ever lost both coordinators after a 15-2 season, making their transition uniquely challenging in the salary cap era. Some historical precedent. Only 6 teams in NFL history have lost both coordinators to head coaching jobs after successful seasons, and the results were sobering. New England had a 14-2 record, went to 10-6. Again, that feels like normal regression. Number 1 and number 2, still a good team. 10 wins is still a good team. If Detroit goes to 10 wins, are we going to sit here and go, ha, now you suck? Probably not. 2022 Philadelphia Eagles went from 14-3 to 11-6. They went down 3 games. Normal regression, though. The Bengals went from 10-6 to 10-5-1. Technically regression, I guess. However, the other 2 actually got better. The San Diego Chargers went from 9-7 to 14-5, which is a +5 differential. The 94 San Francisco 49ers went from 10-6 to 11-5. Not only did they add a game, they won the Super Bowl that year. It says the 49ers were able to exceed their previous success largely due to internal promotion and maintaining core systems. This is exactly what Detroit did, by the way. Detroit's approach mirrors this model with internal coordinator promotions. John Morton, offensive coordinator, returns with system familiarity from his 2022 Lions tenure, while Calvin Shepard, DC, represents continuity from within the organization. Here is the recovery timeline expectation. It says recovery timelines vary significantly. Teams with continuity factors, internal promotions, head coaching stability, typically return to elite performance within 2 to 3 seasons. Those requiring complete system overhauls often need 5+ years. The Patriots, despite losing both coordinators after their 2004 Super Bowl, didn't win another championship for 10 years. Which is true, but they also went to the playoffs pretty much every year after that. So again, you could say that they weren't as good, right? So 2001, 3, and 4. They won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. They didn't win another Super Bowl until 2014 and then went on to win 3 of the next 5. So there is definitely a gap there before they got back to that dominant group. But they were first in the division, 10 wins. First in the division, 12 wins. Lost in the first in the division, 16-0. Lost in the Super Bowl. Missed the playoffs as the number 2 team in the division with 11 wins. So they were 10, 12, 16, 11, 10, 14, 11, 12, and 12 wins. They were never a bad team. Some additional factors here. Ben Johnson going within the division is going to create some problems. Obviously, he has a ton of familiarity with Detroit, which that could possibly work against them. Schedule brutality. Detroit faces the 3rd toughest schedule in 2025. NFC North arms race. Micah Parsons, as well as being in a good division, makes things a little tougher. However, here is the projected timeline and essentially record. Early season struggles. This works to our benefit. Week 1, obviously. It says weeks 1 through 8, 4-4 to 6-2 record. Historical patterns show coordinator transitions create early season adjustment periods. Detroit's brutal opening stretch at Green Bay versus Chicago, Johnson's return, at Baltimore provides immediate test of new systems. The Lions typically excel under Dan Campbell, but coordinator familiarity issues could cost 1 to 2 winnable games during this period. Then, late season improvement, weeks 9 through 16, 6-2 to 8-0 record. Well-coached teams with talent traditionally improve as systems mature. Aiden Hutchinson's return from injury, combined with system mastery by new coordinator, should drive second-half success. Detroit's favorable bye-week positioning, week 8, allows mid-season adjustments. So, overall, I'm not super buying it. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to be bad because they lost their coordinators and Ben Johnson is what made you so good. It's possible, and I would obviously hope that that's the case, although it sucks because now he's in Chicago. But I just am not buying that. But we've got the line stays. Actually, it's kind of bounced back a little bit. It was up to 2.5. It's actually back down to +2 for Detroit, -2 for Green Bay. You can still get 2.5 over at DraftKings, it would appear. But it looks like everybody else has gone back down to 2. It is funny how standard that is this week. I have a feeling that's going to bounce around a little bit, but the amount of games that are 3.5 or closer is pretty much all of them. I mean, you got the Giants and Commanders at 7.5. Browns-Bengals is 4.5, which I guess is something. Denver-Tennessee is 7.5, and that's kind of it. Every other game is expected to be relatively close. We're talking about within a field goal or so. Actually, there's Cardinals and Saints. For some reason, it opened closer. But point is, coin flip game, like most games this week, are going to end up being kind of coin flips. But 2.5, the total is set at 47.5. Lambeau looking like it's going to be about 64 degrees, 0% chance of rain, 8-mile-an-hour winds. Got a couple interesting people being tracked as far as who they're betting on. FTN Fantasy, the people that do DVOA, they bet on the Packers -2. Sandy Plashkes, who's a Action Network and FanDuel guy, picked the Packers. Action Network picked the Packers, and they actually picked them at -1.5, so that was early. Brandon Anderson, another Action Network guy, he picked the Packers at -1.5. He also wrote a little blurb here. Says, this line just feels misread of what the terms are. It might be more of a representation of what they were last year. The Lions offense took 3 major losses this offseason. Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler are huge losses. Though honestly, I would be more concerned about that than the coordinators. The other loss was off the field and the departure of Ben Johnson. New OC John Morton has huge shoes to fill, and the Lions offense should be expected to take significant steps back. Goff has also struggled outdoors. It looks windy. He didn't play in the preseason, so he'll take snaps from a new center and fits that first half trend we just mentioned in our Texans pick. That's not all. The Lions defense does not enter the season healthy. Aiden Hutchinson is still working his way back from injury, and Detroit's defensive tackle rotation is a mess with Alim McNeil still out. Meanwhile, the Packers just added Micah Parsons, and it's an even bigger problem than Detroit has no film on how the Packers will use him unless their new joker against this reworked offensive line. I don't know what that sentence is. Last season, the Lions were just a little bit better at everything. This season, the Packers are, and this is a bet on Green Bay's continuity against those Detroit losses in the trenches and two brand new play callers. Road underdogs of 6 or less that made last year's playoffs are just 17, 32, and 3 against the spread in week 1. Let me say that again. Road underdogs, that would be the Lions. They're on the road. They are the underdogs of 6 or less, meaning not big blowouts. We're talking smaller, like it's expected to be close, that made the postseason last year. So these are good teams. They're on the road. I'd be interested to add to that divisional opponent, but those teams win 17. Their records are 17, 32, and 3 against the spread. That isn't to say win-loss, but considering the Packers are expected to win, if you don't cover the spread, you lost. That's over the last 2 decades. When books know even a playoff team should be an underdog, that tells us all we need to know. Matt Moore picked Green Bay. Sunday Six-Pack picked Green Bay. Stuck picked Green Bay. FTN Fantasy again picks Green Bay. They're picking them all over the place. They picked them against the spread, picked them money line, and then picked them against the spread with better odds. Looks like the only people that picked Detroit on this list of quote-unquote expert picks is this group called Moneyline Hacks, which is an appropriate name. Then there's a bunch of prop picks, which I will go over momentarily here. I'll tell you what bets I made personally. Last couple news and notes things I was able to scrape together here just so we're fully up to date on this game. The Detroit Lions had the number 1 offense last year, were 7th in the league in scoring defense, making them a well-rounded team. They won a team record 15 games, as we know. Packers' youngest team in the NFL for the 3rd year running. They averaged 27 points per game last year and were 6th in the league in scoring defense. Last 2 times they played Week 9, the Lions beat the Packers 24-14 at Lambeau. Kirby Joseph, a Pro Bowl safety, had a pick 6. Dan Campbell twice went for it on 4th down in the red zone, converted both times for touchdowns. Now, those are important details. Number 1, Jordan Love is a big question mark. If he still struggles with all these turnovers and everything, that's problematic. If he doesn't, you're looking at a situation where Detroit won on something that we don't expect to carry over into this year. I'm not saying directly 1-1, that means we win this year. It's just an important point that one of the losses, potentially in part, came from a flaw that we don't expect to see as much of this year. The other ones are those 4th down, go for it type of situations. Do they have the play caller that's going to get in the right plays at the right time? Do they have the offensive line, by the way, which is a massive factor in going for it on 4th down? You probably don't want to pass it on 4th down now that we have Micah Parsons, so you want to run it. And again, the question I asked yesterday, do you want to put that on your interior offensive line? Lions defense, led by first-year defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard. Defense is aggressive, plays a lot of man-to-man coverage. At least that's what they did last year. Presumably, again, they want to try to keep some continuity here. They gave up 62 plays of 20 or more yards in passing games last season, which was the most in the league. Last year, only 2 teams in the NFL allowed more passing yards than the Lions, which are the Jaguars and the Ravens. Player to watch, obviously, for Detroit is going to be Aiden Hutchinson. Premier pass rusher, looked like an MVP candidate. Fully cleared from a broken leg he suffered last season. His quickness and flexibility look better than before the injury, according to reports. The Packers will likely use a Hutchinson plan to chip or double team him. His season sack prop is set at 13.5. The Lions' historic offense that uses a lot of motion and shifting to create mismatches. The team leads the league in play-action passing, with 37% of all passes being play-action. It's another thing that I think works in the Packers' favor. Again, you got to put Micah... The thing with Micah is that he does a thing really well, and it's not that you can't negate it. The question is Detroit going to get away from their game plan? I mean, you could say that maybe play action will work against Micah to slow him down if you want. But I think the knock on Micah is that he doesn't give a crap about if you're running the ball. He's going to try to kill your quarterback. So if you want to play that game where it's like, oh, look, I don't have the ball, smack. Whoops. Was that a run play? My bad, I just killed the quarterback. Oh, play action? Well, lucky me. The other issue with play action is that it takes more time. You're just giving Micah Parsons more time. Generally with guys like that, or Aiden Hutchinson or whatever, you're thinking get the ball out quickly, chips, screens, things of that nature. If play action is your way of doing things, and it is, it's run the ball, dominate with the run, scare the crap out of teams, and then play action over the top. Again, are you going to dominate on the ground with the new offensive lineman you have? Maybe, maybe not. If you don't, is play action going to be as effective? And if it is, are you actually going to run it now that you know Micah Parsons is going to get there in about 2.4 seconds? These are not easy questions. Last year it was an easy question because as much as I love Rashawn and all the guys that we have and whatnot, the pass rush was not only lacking, but it was clearly not adequate enough to be a threat to play action. Especially when we're terrified of stopping the run, because they're very good at it with their two-headed monster and this beefed-up, terrifying offensive line. Again, that to me is the bigger question. It's still a question of can these guys run the right plays, but that's the bigger question to me, because you knock down that one domino of we don't have the offensive line, that hits the next domino of therefore we can't run the ball as effectively, which hits the next domino of therefore our play action passing game is not as effective, which knocks down the last domino of therefore we're not very good anymore, unless and until we can come up with something else, which is when I start to panic, from a Lions fan perspective, about are we going to be good anymore, because now we're changing the offense entirely. So you got new guys coming up with new offensive identities and concepts. Now it's just a whole new thing. And the odds that it's going to work as good as the last thing, when you had Ben Johnson and better players and a system that did work, we're going to have an experimental system with an experimental offensive coordinator and not as good of players? I mean, yeah, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Jared Goff, 6-2 against the Packers, 13 touchdowns. In 2024, he had an 84.8 play-action passing grade against the Packers, completing 24 of 27 for 115 yards. 115 passer rating. That's even worse. Again, though, that's the secret sauce. That is the identity. And whether you want to call the guy a genius for making that work or not is entirely up to you. But it's a pretty straightforward system. Build a dominant offensive line. Give me a two-headed monster rushing attack. And then give me an intelligent, accurate quarterback to be able to play the play-action game. Oh, and by the way, we've got a guy that runs blazing fast, so our play-action deep shots are there. And if we don't want to go that way, we got a guy that just dominates underneath an Amon-Ra St. Brown. The pieces are impeccable. Oh, and a great tight end. This is why I'm very skeptical of the offensive coordinator thing. But again, dominoes. You can still play football, but this unstoppable machine really becomes a question mark, number one, when your interior can't block as well for your running backs anymore, and number two, you have now a fierce pass rusher, which doesn't exist anywhere else in the NFC North. Not to say that they never saw one all year. I'm sure they did. Who else would they have seen that had one? Oh, they played Dallas last year, so there you go. There's a couple borderline really good pass rushers out there. But honestly, maybe if Bosa played Week 17, those would be about the two that they saw all year. The point, you just don't see these guys all the time. And again, the bigger issue with Dallas is they had Micah and not a lot else. With the Packers, it's not really the situation. Packers have better linebackers, they have better corners, they have better safeties, they have better defensive tackles, and they have better edge rushers. You can choose to not believe that if you want. You could say that Dallas has better corners, I guess. I think some of the guys are overrated, but fine, give them the corners. He did not play in the 2025 preseason. Some analysts believe makes him a fade candidate for this game. For all of you who are very big on if you don't play, that's a problem. I mean, technically, we played more than they did. So number one, I don't want to hear any complaining about, well, they weren't prepared because you didn't play them in the preseason. Packers played more than the Lions starters did. Number two, you should be very excited about how much the Lions are going to suck in this game. His Week 1 betting trend is 8-0 against the spread, including a 4-0 record with both the Rams and the Lions. That's not great. Key matchups, Micah and Penei Sewell. Now, again, I don't know where they're going to put Micah. Micah is the priority. Rashawn is not going to be, well, we like you here, therefore you're stuck over. No, where they want Micah is going to be wherever, and I do think they're going to move him around. But keep in mind, Rashawn has been solid to that side. And Rashawn is the better run defender. And Sewell is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. Very good at both, but I'm just pointing that out. I think moving Micah around, but maybe putting him more so off the left tackle with Rashawn on the other side is not the worst option. Now, the fear is going to be, okay, so they're going to chip Rashawn, and then Penei Sewell is going to be on Parsons. That's going to give him a decent opportunity to be able to just run their offense. I mean, you're going to have to bring somebody in to chip, as opposed to just letting Penei Sewell tee off on Rashawn. But that is a potential recipe to shut this down, in which case you're probably going to want to switch some things up. But remember, Micah Parsons actually did quite well against Penei Sewell the last time they saw him. We went over those stats. It was, 5 pressures against Penei Sewell is the first time he'd done that basically in his career, and only. The other, exact opposite situation, Hutchinson and Zach Tom. Very fortunate that we have Zach Tom. I do think Hutch tends to stay to that side, if I'm not mistaken. So that is going to be a serious battle. Again, incredibly important that we have Zach Tom. Also the reason why the differentiation between right and left tackle in terms of pay and whatnot has essentially been reduced to 0. Look at all the elite pass rushers that stay off the right side. And Hutchinson does make sense. That tends to be the stronger running side, even though even that differentiation is probably going away a little bit. But Hutchinson's a very good run defender and pass rusher, so they stick him to that side. Rashawn Gary, good against the run, they stick him to that side. The pure speed edge rushers, typically off the quarterback's blind side is the way that they like to do that. So I don't know that it's going to be Parsons and Sewell, although it probably will be Hutchinson and Zach Tom. The other thing to keep an eye on is the Lions' interior offensive line. Graham Glasgow, again, really not very good. The 2 guys next to him are rookies. Again, Mahogany, in the very little bit that we got to see him, was elite, but it was very little. In fact, let me check the preseason and see what it doesn't tell us a ton, but if he was elite there too, it just makes me slightly more nervous. If he wasn't, slightly less. See how much these guys actually played. So number 1 is going to be, left guard? Don't tell me he didn't play at all. You've got to be kidding me. None of their starters played at all. Tate Radledge did. So that's their starting right guard. He played the 4th most snaps at right guard, only played right guard, had a 65 grade, 64 run blocking, 63 pass blocking, so not terrible, certainly not good. He gave up just 1 hurry in his 15 attempts. I don't know if that's considered good or bad. Christian Mahogany, not a single snap. My goodness, did he play in last year's preseason? Am I even looking at the right team? How did he not play last year? Was he hurt? I don't know, but 65 snaps in the regular season last year, 82 grade, 81 run blocking, 83 pass blocking. I mean, that's about as good as you can get. It is primarily because of what he did against Minnesota. He had a 69 grade overall against Green Bay in his 3 run blocking snaps. The only real game he played was actually Chicago, so it wasn't 2 games, it was 1 game. And he had a 70 run blocking, 83 pass blocking. San Francisco, he played 2 snaps, and then Minnesota, 5 snaps. He had a 92 grade. I don't know. We'll see. See how it goes. Week 1, the guy has hardly played any football whatsoever because they've decided to just not play him. So, see how that works out. The other is Terrion Arnold versus Matthew Golden, or whoever ends up covering. I doubt they have anybody doing shadow coverage, and I don't exactly know who they intend to be their top dog. But if Terrion Arnold is as bad as he was last year, that could be a lot of fun. Last 2 things I want to do. I can't give you the most recent injury report because I don't have it. Actually, I do have it. I guess we're here. Well, there's still a couple without a game status, but Isaac Tesla, I'd mentioned the wide receiver. He was a full participant Friday. He should be good to go. Taylor Decker was just going through some veteran rest stuff, which is still a good thing. That's probably who Mike is going to be seeing a lot of. He's a good tackle, but when you get a guy old like that really hasn't been playing, he's rusty, he's getting veteran rest days, and Micah Parsons is coming at you like a frickin' pit bull on your first day. We'll see. Sion Vaki, Trevor Nowaski, Jamarco Jones. I think I mentioned all these guys are going to be out. Vaki is way down on the running back list. Nowaski is down on the linebacker list. And Jamarco Jones, I couldn't tell you if he's like next man up. But whatever. For the Packers, Jordan Love, Elton Jenkins on the list, but not listed as having any kind of injury designation, meaning they're fine, which is great. Anderson, Hobbs, Parsons, Reed, Sorrell, Wicks, and Williams all listed as questionable. It's a big list. I'm sure some of these guys are probably not going to play, but I do like that We have no doubtfuls and no outs. So we'll see how that goes. Final thing real quick before we go on to the other games during this week. Very grateful to our sponsors. First of all, Underdog Fantasy. I don't think I've done this in the past. I'm going to try to do it pretty regularly. I don't put as much emphasis on this as I should, and I know I mentioned it in the ads and whatnot, but I just want to give you an updated one as we go. So far, I'm 1-0 on my bets. As I mentioned, I bet the Chargers, not very much. It was like $3 or something. But I bet on the Chargers against the spread against the Chiefs. That was beautiful. But over at Underdog, you get to have a little bit more fun with these multiple pick bets where you get to bet a little bit less to make a little bit more. For me, these are just so much more fun. Your odds obviously are a lot steeper, but it's just fun. You can't pick everybody on the same team, so I did pick Jahmyr Gibbs to go higher than 68.5 rush yards. I don't mean to be anti-Packers here. I was just looking at the stats, trying to pick somebody else that's a non-Packer, and I thought, you spend enough time trying to find it, and they do a good job of picking that exact number that's like, man, I like the number that they're at. But this is one where I looked at and thought, I think higher, if I were to pick a number, it would have been higher. So I did go higher with Jahmyr Gibbs, 68.5 yards. And then Jordan Love, right out of the gate, higher than 4.5 rushing yards. In my mind, if he takes off one time, he's going to crack that. The team has talked a ton about how that's a weapon. They want him to be able to utilize that more. It's obviously somewhat of a coin flip if he's ever going to get that opportunity. But we heard how they like to use man coverage a lot. Man, you got man coverage. You got Aiden Hutchinson who's going to push him out of the pocket. Cornerbacks' eyes are turned. You got the linebackers to worry about, but 4.5 yards? Yeah, dude. Matthew Golden over 46.5. First of all, I love that he's already considered the top receiver. I wish that he wasn't. I wish they were saying maybe he gets 25, but he has the highest numbers already. I still have it higher than that. That might be kind of silly. It might take some time for that connection to work out. I just think they're going to crack that. That one's probably one of the most iffy. Another one I feel really confident in, Romeo Doubs, higher than 2.5 receptions. Romeo's still his dude. Jaden Reed is a little banged up. He's not going to get 3 receptions? I don't know about that, dude. I mean, we saw A.J. Brown just get 1, so anything could happen, but that one feels pretty set. And then, of course, I had to do Micah Parsons, higher than 0.5 sacks. That one feels like a pretty solid bet. Remember, if he averages like 14 sacks a year, that's less than 1 a game. So there's no guarantee he gets 1 in a game, but it's also more than 0.5 per game. So that's what I went with. Only dropped $10 on it, but could pull in $100 if I get all 5 of those right. And then another great sponsor of ours, Prize Picks. Again, going to be some similarities here, but my one bonus pick was Lamar Jackson because over at Prize Picks, they do have some kind of easy money bets. Lamar Jackson, more than 0.5 pass yards. So that's kind of your automatic entry. And then I can kind of just go off on the rest. I did also add Jared Goff. I put him less than 0.5 interceptions. Obviously hoping we get one. Micah Parsons is going to complicate some things. There's no doubt about it. I'm starting to regret it as I sit here and think about it in terms of him being rusty and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, throwing interceptions in less than half your games, it just feels like mathematically it's kind of on your side a little bit. I don't think he threw any last year against the Packers. I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly when I made these bets exactly what that was. Then, back to the Packers. Again, Matthew Golden for receiving yards, more than 49.5. Josh Jacobs, over 17 rushing attempts. If you remember, and I would hammer the living crap out of that one, they're hoping for him to get 125, I think, rush yards to be able to break some kind of a record. In order to do that, the only games where he did that or got close, 25 or more rush attempts. 17, even leaving that aside. In this game, trying to minimize the pass rush risk, trying to assert yourself as the more physical team, 17, yeah, I don't know, dude. It's early in the season. They may want to preserve him, but I think that's a relatively easy one. And then you got Micah Parsons, more than 0.25 sacks. So even a half sack here would count. So the Goff one makes me a little bit nervous, but that was my other bet. That was $10. It'll pay out 80 if it hits. All right, we're running pretty long here. We'll take a break. We'll come back and rip through the rest of these games, primarily focused on thoughts for those that are interested, as well as just kind of rooting interests, I guess, is really the more important thing. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right. Again, I haven't fully thought through exactly what the betting strategies would be as of right now. As far as week one, it's really iffy and up in the air. I think no matter what, anything that I could even think to try to put together, build, whatever, I don't think I would trust it. It's just too weird. But we've got Raiders-Patriots. Not a person on earth cares. Patriots, believe it or not, are 2.5-point favorites, which is an indictment of the Raiders. Really no rooting interest whatsoever. Again, NFC North, obviously. NFC, if you play them, but also NFC that are playoff caliber teams or even borderline teams, and then AFC potential Super Bowl teams / do we play them at any point this season is kind of the only route. Raiders, Patriots, I couldn't care less about them, period. Bengals, Browns. Bengals 5.5-point favorites. We do play the AFC North, so we'll be seeing both of these teams. So there is a part of me that hopes that the Bengals don't really look good. And if the Browns win, I think that's all the better. The Bengals are a potential playoff team, which means they're a potential Super Bowl team. They're a potential scary team that we're going to be facing this year. It's going to be week 6. The Browns, I don't think, are really going to ever be anything outside of a team that's scary because of Myles Garrett. So there will be a slight rooting interest for me in the Browns. Overall, just looking for 2 bad teams. But otherwise, don't super care. By the way, I forgot the whole betting thing. I think the one thing that I would lean into is this, it's called Dave. It's DVOA using, it's meant to be early season DVOA. We're going to look pretty heavily at what happened last year and some other stuff that we mixed together to try to make it work. I use that in part for the Chiefs and the Chargers game, and their prediction for that score was, what was it? That's not right. Did that just get changed? I swear it was like exact. Maybe it was Philly-Dallas. It doesn't matter. The point is, got it right. Oh yeah, it was the Philly-Dallas game. They had it 24-20. And the score prediction was 24-21, 23.6 and 20.6. If you stick with that with the Chargers and the Chiefs, they didn't have it as that big of a discrepancy, but did have the Chargers winning the game. And so if I were to stick with that, it has New England as a 1-point favorite, which would mean, if you were to stick very strictly to that, you would bet the Raiders. And in fact, similar to the Chiefs, all 4 of them lean that way. The 2 are in favor of New England, but the spread is below or above, whatever, 2.5. The other 2 are for the Raiders. I'm not going to do that because I'm not comfortable enough with that one. But if you're asking me, as your expert betting guru, bet the Raiders against the spread. Bengals, Browns, Dave is at 3.47. That would also lean Browns. There's another one that leans Browns. However, the other 2, including the LO and this PI plus, are Cincinnati minus 19 and minus 10, which is heavily Cincinnati. Again, I just don't trust it enough. I don't even have a thought for you. Certainly wouldn't do money line. I don't know. Wouldn't touch it. Again, if I had more time and I was doing this stuff, and I'll try to do this for next week, get at this a little bit earlier, looking at some trends and how do these teams do in week 1 and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have that for you today. Cardinals, Saints, as far as a rooting interest, I mean, generally speaking, the Saints are expected to be dog crap. The Cardinals are potential playoff teams, a potential playoff team, and we do play them. So I'm going to be rooting for the Saints in that game. Remember, I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking down the line when we're competing against 4, 5, 6, 7 NFC teams. Boy, it would have been nice for the Cardinals to drop one to the Saints early. You know what I mean? Not that I think the Cardinals are going to be in a position to really compete with us, but just in case. Giants, Commanders, exact same thing. Giants are a joke. Commanders are a good football team. I'm rooting Giants. I forgot the bets again. Again, we've got 2 of them, the same 2, very heavily Arizona. The other 2 actually lean New Orleans. Actually in terms of winning, but either way, if you're looking against the spread, if it wasn't for the other 2 so heavily in that direction, you'd look at maybe betting the Saints against the spread, but again, probably not a good one to go after. Giants, Commanders, it is Washington across the board. However, The two kind of outlier ones have Washington at about -3. The other two are Washington -11 and -20. So with Washington being -6.5, again, I don't know. Panthers, Jaguars, I don't care. We do play the Carolina Panthers. Do we play the Jaguars? I don't think so. So, I guess just fingers crossed that the Panthers don't look very good. This game, I would be a little bit tempted to go on the Panthers side. There are two, which is kind of interesting because typically these are the guys going after the underdogs. So the Dave and the DVOA have Jacksonville winning the game, but for less than the spread. It's at -0.5 and -0.4, so that would be, bet Panthers. The other two actually have the Panthers by a little bit, but the Panthers. So I would, and I may, place a little bet on the Panthers. Jaguars are -3.5. The score predictions are 18-16 Carolina, 24-23.8 Jacksonville, 21-20 Carolina, and 25-24.5 Jacksonville. I mean, all very down to the line and for either team, but none of them have the Jaguars covering by that much. So that would be one that stands out. Again, all of these are weird. They're week one, whatever. You're just asking, I'm just talking. Dolphins, Colts, again, I don't care. AFC slop. Colts are 1-point favorites, which really just is an indictment for both of these teams. Can't really go either which way. All four of these different things have it extremely close. Only one of them has it more than a point. DVOA has Miami -1.33. So way, way, way too close. Steelers-Jets is a fun game. We do play the Steelers, so I'll be rooting for the Jets. On top of that, Rodgers is a Steeler. As I said, when you come back, I'll welcome you with open arms. Until then, you are not somebody I'm rooting for. So him losing to the Jets would be funny. The Steelers are 3-point favorites, which I think makes perfect sense. And as far as the betting, all four have Pittsburgh winning. 3 of the 4 for less than the spread. So I wouldn't. I guess I should be looking at the totals as well, although I don't have that up. We'll just do a quick sweep at the end. Buccaneers, Falcons, they're two NFC teams. Buccaneers are clearly a playoff team to watch out for. They're only about a point favorite, which I would guess speaks pretty highly of Atlanta. I would have thought the Buccaneers would have been a little bit further ahead than that. And sure enough, all the betting is in favor of Tampa, and by more than a point. So I would lean Tampa, especially if you can find. They're saying that there's 0.5 somewhere. I don't know where it is. Oh, right here. What is this? Fanatics New Jersey Sportsbook. Whatever. Otherwise, try to get it for 1. There's 1.5 out there too. Try to get it for 1. MGM, Bet365, whatever. I would lean Tampa for sure. We've got 7.3 point favorites, 3.99 called 4, 4.94, and 2.57. All of them above 1. Some of them, again, as high as 7 or more. It is in Atlanta, so there's a little bit of an edge there, I guess. But I would think the Buccaneers would handle business there. Titans and the Broncos, not supremely interesting at all. Broncos are 8-point favorites, 8.5 actually in more places than that. And I really wouldn't touch that because Denver is unanimous here. 2 of them under, 2 of them over, and in both directions in pretty massive swings. So if you wanted to bet Denver money line, but that's a whole other deal. They've got it at -110, so you'd have to figure out if that feels right, I guess. 49ers, Seahawks, I am supremely interested in. That NFC West division I don't like. They always seem to be contenders in the playoffs. I don't know which ones will be and which ones won't be. They're very weird, especially the 49ers. Some years they're great, some years they're terrible. But I assume that one or both of those teams will be competing with us down the stretch. So it's kind of a pick your poison. Either way, one of them is going to lose, and that's great. It's sitting at about 1.5-point favorites for the road team 49ers. However, we have all 4 of our little betting deals here in favor of Seattle. In fact, the closest one is Seattle at about a point, and it goes up to 3.68 points. So I would lean Seattle there, especially if you can get it at the higher prices. MGM has it plus 2.5. I would see if you can find that and lock in on that if you can. Detroit and Green Bay. Should save it for last, but we're going in order because I just don't want to get confused. Packers, again, sitting at between 2 and 2.5, depending on where you look. 3 of our 4 things here have Detroit winning. Now, obviously, Micah Parsons is not taken into account here. Everybody's offseason acquisitions are not taken into account, so I can't make some kind of special super exception here. If I was being consistent, I would say bet Detroit. I'm not telling you to do that unless you want to be like me and hedge your bets. I may do that anyways, just, whatever. Helps me with my sanity. Probably won't, though. I don't want to put that bad juju out there. I'm feeling good, and I just want to stay feeling good. But the DVOA Dave, which is the one that I think is probably the best right now, does have Green Bay winning, but it's only by 0.23 points. 25.2 compared to 25.4. They have the Packers at -2. That would still be a bet Lions. The other ones being Detroit by 6, Detroit by 4, Detroit by 2. Do with that as you will. Ravens and Bills, I just think is a fantastic football game. Obviously, both of these teams are threats as far as in the future. We do have to see the Ravens, again, AFC North team. I guess for that reason, I would root Bills. But overall, I just think it's a fun matchup. It's kind of like Packers-Lions, but from the other side. It's a stress-free, just good game. With that said, this is one that I would lean betting on the Bills. All 4 of our betting systems here have Buffalo winning the game. It is only between 1 and 3 points. But remember, the Ravens are 1-point favorites. You can find it for between 1 and 1.5, depending on where you look. So find it for 1. That's the kind of where it is in most places if you wanted to bet that. The Vikings and the Chicago Bears. I hate to say it, but rooting for Chicago makes the most sense. At least that's my opinion, because I believe Minnesota will be better than Chicago. If you believe Chicago will be better than Minnesota, then you root the opposite. Either way, as I said, one of these teams is going to lose, and we get to laugh at them. I always say I'm going to root for the Bears, and then their quarterback's going to throw a pick, and I'm going to start jumping up and down, and my son's going to grill me out. Why are you doing that? You say, just leave me alone, all right? Just leave me alone. I don't know why I do what I do. Just let me do what I do. The Vikings are 1.5-point favorites. I'm a little iffy, but I would lean toward betting Minnesota. All 4 have Minnesota winning. 2 of them are for less than 1.5, and actually you can find 1, which makes it closer. But Minnesota minus 0.87 and 0.15. The other 2 are by 5 and 10.5 points. So it is, again, it's pretty iffy here. And there's there's a billion reasons to not touch this. Week 1, divisional matchup. You've got new coordinators in Chicago, new head coach. You've got new quarterback in Minnesota. It's in Chicago, which I feel like makes it even harder because otherwise I'd be more confident in Vikings. Again, for every single reason, division matchup, all that stuff, it's tough. And again, if it was in Minnesota, I'd feel at least a little bit more comfortable that they win the game, but I don't know anything about JJ. Even if I wanted to dunk on Caleb, which I don't know that I could, because even if Caleb doesn't have a good season, he might have a good week. Again, there is a reality. There is a situation where they can craft something, again, kind of like what they did with Malik, where they say, this is our offense that'll work for you. But that's not going to work for an entire season. And so the Bears might empty the bag. They might realize we don't have jack squat to work with here, so they're going to craft an audience and offense around Caleb and a bunch of trick plays and all kinds of stuff. Play it like it's your Super Bowl. Go out, start 1-0 against a divisional opponent. You're, you will be second in the division or tied for first in the division, and we'll just figure out how to get through week 2. So I don't know, man. I would heavily lean Vikings, but I also am. There's a lot of concerns there, so I'm just not touching that. And we got Monday, or that is Monday. Okay. Couldn't tell if the thing on the bottom or top was the whatever. So that's all we got. And we can talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, maybe. Probably not. But that's where we're at. And I took a several-hour break in there to go watch a fight, so I don't remember what bets I said I was going to make, so I probably won't make them. But I am going to leave it at that. I got a lot of Packernet After Dark to do. Unbelievably excited. Get the grills fired up. Get the jerseys on. Make sure your lucky underwear is washed. Unless unwashed is part of the ritual, then, just don't tell me about it. And I will talk to you all tonight. Have a good one. Bye-bye.